Today, my name is Frederick Muitiriri. My sign language interpreter is Teresia Washira. These are the highlights.
The COVID-19 pandemic has negatively affected our daily routines, but the constitutionally set date for the general election remains fixed.
2022 general election dates to remain as is, declares IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati. MPs agree with IEBC that all leaders vying in the next year's general elections will be required to have a minimum of a bachelor's degree. And tonight, we explain to you what to do if someone in your proximity suffers from cardiac arrest, as happened to soccer star Christian Eriksen. All right, welcome to the broadcast. You can talk to us via SMS line that is on 111 444 111 444 at Switch TV Kenya at Fred Muitiriri. We kickstart with education matters. Now, candidates who sat for their Kenya Certificate of Primary Education KCPE report to school on 2nd of August this year after staying home for 3 months. This is after Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha announced that students from public schools will be given top priority during the selection. Rachel Ndwati has this story.
Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has assured parents that each child who sat for their KCPE exam will be placed to a secondary school. The placement exercise had been postponed due to the ongoing crisis caused by the coronavirus pandemic.
All in all, the Form 1 students will open school on the 2nd of August. And that's another reason why I called the stakeholders here today, so that it doesn't look like it is something I've made on my own. The 2nd of August is the date. If somebody has an issue before we break, you let us know.
Speaking during a press conference, Professor Magoha added that the selection would be done on the basis of balance and fairness bereft of bias.
In the selection, we have strictly applied the principles of equity, fairness, merit, transparency, inclusiveness, and affirmative action in placing candidates to each school category.
According to Magoha, the number of students who sat for their KCPE exam is 1.18 million. The number of girls who have secured positions in national schools is 17,806, and that of boys is 18,848. The number of girls who have secured positions in county school is 115,325, and that of boys is 98,266. The number of girls who have secured positions in sub-county schools is 357,029, and that of boys is 361,487. However, Magoha pointed out that candidates who got 400 marks and above would be placed to schools of their choice. Despite the challenges that the KCPE 2020 candidates have experienced, they can now smile at the start of a new era of high school. Rachel Ndwati, Switch TV.
Thank you, Rachel. Now, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission says the national general election dates will remain as is despite the ongoing challenges, including COVID-19 in the country. The commission has also cleared the air on the issue of servers, saying it will only rely on single server, adding that results will be announced at the polling station level. David Kagina with more.
The Acting Chief Executive Officer, Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, Hussein Marjan, says the commission is not changing its mind on the election date.
The COVID-19 pandemic has negatively affected our daily routines, but the constitutionally set date for the general election remains fixed. And that date is approximately 13 months away. To be precise, 60 weeks. Or for 21 days.
The chairman Wafula Chebukati has also stated that the commission will no longer rely on a single server and multiple servers will be used to allow transparency and leave no room for discrepancies.
Election results are in the polling station. That is what it is. At every polling station after counting, those are the results. Issues of transmission should not be an issue that should affect elections in any way.
He has, however, pleaded with the National Assembly to pass the election financing bill to ease the operations of the commission.
Our funding only comes in just when the election is about. Like the first tranche of our funding now is coming in the next financial year.
With the launch of the 2020-2024 strategic plan, the IEBC is now confident that it will execute its mandate come 2022 as stipulated in the Constitution. David Kagina, Switch TV from the Bomas of Kenya, Nairobi.
All right, staying with matters IEBC, a heated debate has ensued in Parliament today over the academic qualification of leaders in the country. Leaders from the MCA position to that of the governor will be required to have a minimum of a bachelor's degree. According to IEBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati, his commission will follow the law as set by the 10th Parliament in the next general elections. Namukana Samuel reports.
The National Assembly has today debated over the divisive qualifications of leaders in the country. Leaders eyeing MCA, MP or gubernatorial positions without having a bachelor's degree are at risk of being locked out of the 2022 general elections.
Within the new constitution, it introduced academic qualifications. Previously, the old constitution did not have that, because the framers of the constitution determined that it was necessary to have a certain basic minimum educational qualification.
One of them even approached me at the lobby and asked me, is it true that we have passed an amendment that is now going to bar anyone who doesn't have a degree from contesting? And Mr. Speaker, I told him yes. And he was shocked, and he was seated right inside Parliament, Mr. Speaker. And that member of Parliament is still in this house.
The bill to have leaders in the country have a minimum of a bachelor's degree was passed by the 10th Parliament and was set to take effect in 2017, but was later postponed to 2022 to allow leaders get through university education.
We have seen, Mr. Speaker, we have seen even in some cases where you have a law professor as a governor and, oversighted by illiterate MCAs. Mr. Speaker, this issue, we discussed it in the 11th Parliament, like the Honorable Duale said, Mr. Speaker, and this time we are not going to postpone again to 2027.
IEBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati has said that his commission will apply the rule of law. This means all the leaders who do not meet education qualification threshold will be locked out.
Let me say that was not me speaking. That's what the law says. Section 22 of the Elections Act says that. So it's not something the commission has come up with. And if anybody wants to go to court, I think they are free to do so.
Section 22 of the Elections Act 2012 is expected to be enforced in the next elections, and this will make it mandatory for aspirants to have a university degree to get clearance by the Electoral Commission to contest.
In 2022, your member of county assembly in your village must have a degree from a recognized institution. Namukana Samuel, Switch TV, Nairobi.
All right, thank you, Samuel. Now, ODM leader Raila Odinga has maintained that the decision by a judge bench to annul the process that should be the BBI process did not end it, and that those who are opposed to it should not celebrate yet. According to Raila, COVID-19 pandemic and the petition in court only took the campaigns affirming that reggae will be back because nobody can stop reggae.
Hiyo inawezekana. Ndio sababu BBI ilikuwa inasema ongeza constituency 12. Nairobi. Sasa siongei leo juu ya mambo ya BBI, maana iko huko mbele mahakamani. Na nasema tu imefanya BBI ile reggae imeenda likizo. Corona na hii mambo ya mahakama imepeleka reggae kwa half time. Lakini reggae itarudi. Because nobody can stop. Asanteni sana.
Baba, nobody can stop reggae. All right. Deputy President William Ruto has questioned why President Uhuru Kenyatta has not considered supporting him in 2022 general election despite his 2013 promise of supporting his deputy in 2022. The second-in-command was responding to President Kenyatta's sentiment at the State House yesterday that he will support a NASA candidate in 2022 if they unite. Our senior political reporter Joel Chacha with more.
A day after the president held a meeting with leaders from the Lower Eastern region at State House and vowed to support the NASA coalition in 2022, his deputy has taken to Twitter to respond, questioning why there is no intention by President Kenyatta to endorse him in the coming general elections, contrary to his previous stand, where he maintained he needed no one to support him. The DP added that he would rely on God's support and the people of Kenya to win the election. In a tweet later in the day, Deputy President, who is also the deputy party leader of Jubilee Party, tweeted, and I quote, "So, was the distraction or disremembering of Jubilee, which is a national party, meant to pave way for support of regional or tribal parties in NASA? Now, with the collapse of Jubilee, isn't it fair for those who can't fit in ethnic parties to build UDA as an alternative national party? This appears that Ruto and his allies will fully commit to build UDA party, as it has also emerged that Ruto is set to open a UDA office in the United States as part of his strategy to widen his networks and woo diaspora voters. He's expected to virtually officiate the opening on Friday. Joel Chacha, Switch TV, Nairobi.
Now, Nyanza region continues to grapple with the Delta variant, most notably attributed to the large political gatherings, despite the presidential directive to bar political gatherings. Harriet Chimea files the report.
Despite the presidential directive to bar political gatherings as a measure to curb COVID-19, Kangemi was the latest display of defiance. Crowds gathered, cheering, raising their hands, men without face masks, let alone observing social distancing, as they followed political leader Raila Odinga. The same case was seen a while back during the Madaraka celebrations. And as a repercussion, Nyanza region is now fighting the Delta variant, which is more transmissible, with hospitals, both private and public, outstretched. Thus begging the question of where the priority lies. Is it health or politics? In Nyanza region, Kisumu County continues to lead with 66 cases, Busia 43, Siaya 30, Homa Bay 22. According to the Ministry of Health, many people are likely to lose their lives due to the Delta variant as county governments put up stringent measures, including decongesting morgues, closing open-air markets, and arresting those in defiance of COVID-19 protocols in order to mitigate the spread of the virus. This emerges as 456 more people test positive for the virus, with 535 recoveries and 7 deaths. Reporting for Switch TV, my name is Harriet Chimea.
Now, about 80% cardiac arrest happen in out-of-hospital environments, making it almost impossible for a cardiopulmonary resuscitation to be performed, leaving chances of death or brain damage on a high, as happened to former Game MP Jacoyo Midiwo, who succumbed yesterday to cardiac arrest. Danish soccer star and Inter Milan player Christian Eriksen survived a cardiac arrest scare during their opening match against Finland 2 days ago. Now, our senior reporter Hadia Mwasiwa takes us through a quick session on how and why it is important for one to be able to conduct a CPR in case of an emergency.
So, hello sir, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Cardiac arrest causes the cessation of cerebral blood flow, which produces loss of consciousness within 6 seconds. There are less than 10 minutes before the human brain dies after a cardiac arrest if no cardiopulmonary resuscitation is performed. William Kimanzi, a paramedic, demonstrates how PCR skills could be administered in times of emergency.
I tilt the head back and lift the chin up. So I'm going to simply observe the rise and fall of the chest for 5 to 10 seconds. Push hard and fast at the center of the chest at a rate of 100 to 120 compressions per second, which is roughly 2 compressions per second. Tilting the head back and lifting the chin, and then give the casualty breaths. So the ratio of compressions to artificial ventilations is 30 to 2. So you give 30 chest compressions to 2 rescue breaths. And you do that for 5 cycles. That is 32, 32, 32, 32, 32.
According to Kimanzi, these skills come in handy and are crucial for saving a life. On the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the demand for CPR skills has been on the rise.
It will be easier to relate when the dispatcher is telling you to locate the center of the chest, when the dispatcher is telling you to compress, when they are telling you to give maybe the artificial ventilations. It will be quite easy to relate. So it is quite important for you to have these skills. And sometimes when you don't have the skills, this could happen to somebody close to you. It could happen to your child, could happen to your spouse, could happen to your parents or your friends, relatives. And you having the life-saving skills of CPR, that could mean the difference between life and death for a casualty. Since COVID started, the cardiac arrest cases have increased because we've had cases whereby people are having difficulty in breathing, and the difficulty in breathing slowly progresses to complete cessation of breathing, and that eventually leads to cardiac arrest.
With 80% of cardiac arrest cases happening away from the hospital, having the skill to conduct a cardiopulmonary resuscitation draws the line between life and death. Reporting for Switch TV, I'm Hadia Mwasiwa.
Believing that is a helpful session, you can be able to perform a CPR in case of an emergency. We are taking a short break. We'll be back with more in a short while. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back. Now moving on, crowds of Israelis gathered on Sunday near the Knesset Israeli parliament in Jerusalem to express support for the new coalition government with hopes and concerns for its abilities to address economic and social issues. Israel's parliament on Sunday approved a new coalition government comprised of 8 parties led by nationalist Naftali Bennett and centralist Yair Lapid, ending the 12-year tenure of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. After 4 elections in 2 years, Bennett, leaders of the right-wing Yamina party, will first assume the post of Prime Minister until 2023, and then Lapid, leader of the centralist Yesh Atid party, will take over the post until November 2025.
Celebrating the new government because it's something new, something fresh, with good people, and all the sides of the country. I mean, the right side, the left side, not only side. I think it's a dream of every child that the religion wants, and the Arab, everybody in one government. It's something that we thought will never happen.
Government is in a very delicate situation, and it is compound of very different parties, and it will need to deal with a very delicate state in Israel. And first of all, I hope they will take down the atmosphere of hating between the different groups in Israel, and make Israel more united, and start deal with the Israel economy, which is in a very bad shape. Israel education was moving back in the last years. There are many things to do.
Now, United States President Joe Biden will cap off his European tour, his first foreign trip, with a meeting in Geneva tomorrow with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The highly anticipated summit, which the U.S. began pursuing in April, days before announcing sanctions on Moscow and expelling diplomats over the Russian hacking of U.S. federal agencies, targeting dissidents or journalists and undermining security in the region, will be Biden's first face-to-face meeting with Putin, as President Sally Liza narrates.
It notably comes before Biden has met Chinese President Xi Jinping, underscoring the continued relevance and the perceived threat of Moscow to Washington and its NATO allies, even as the Biden administration continues to reorient U.S. foreign policy towards Beijing in what many considered an emerging Cold War. In the days leading up to the meeting, the Biden administration has stressed a dual policy of pushing back against Russia for its perceived misendeavors, at the same time talking about engaging, said Richard Sakwa, a professor of politics at the University of Kent. Points of contention sure to top the U.S. agenda will be so-called SolarWind cyber attacks, the alleged Russian meddling in the 2016 and 2020 U.S. presidential elections, the Russian troop buildup on the border of Ukraine and its continued occupation of Crimea, the militarization of the Arctic, and the alleged poisoning and imprisonment of Russian opposition figure Alexei Navalny. Meanwhile, Biden officials have in recent days sought to dispel criticism from some legislators and allies that the meeting is a reward for Putin, with National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan calling the summit vital in working towards strategic stability so we can make progress on arms control and other nuclear areas.
All right, it's time for business. The government has been taking deliberate steps towards addressing the challenges in the construction industry, with the latest being the formulation of a constructive industry policy that seeks to create a well-coordinated and developed construction industry by addressing the needs of the industry and thereby contribute to sustainable socio-economic development. This policy has identified thematic areas and 3 objectives with their corresponding policy directions. It is incumbent on all construction industry players to implement them for the policy to positively impact the industry. The State Department will continue to support the Big Four agenda initiative of the government by ensuring the construction of the high quality and affordable 500,000 housing units.
How do we manage these humongous thing that if it is not managed well, it can also become a challenge. And the challenges will be, you'll end up with buildings that will collapse. You'll also end up with buildings that will end up in places where they are not supposed to be, thereby making certain places lose value. Or you'll actually end up in some...
The Mass Intimates Kenya that manufactures apparel exclusively for PVH Corp, home to iconic fashion brands like Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger, has kicked off a personal advancement and career enhancement program in Kenya. The initiative aims at helping women in the global apparel industry in both their career and personal lives. The program aims at reaching 800,000 women and girls across 300 apparel manufacturing factories and communities in 17 countries.
As part of our growth and ambitions within the manufacturing pillar, and especially the textile and apparel sector, one of the things that we put in to our focus plans is training. And we have a goal and a metric to train more than 50,000 youth.
Governor Wycliffe Oparanya has urged citizens to embrace alternative dispute resolution mechanism to settle land disputes in the county. He has said land disputes are emotive and are on the rise in the country. Oparanya has regretted that some of the land cases remain pending in courts for over 10 years.
Kuliko wewe uende kotini, uharibu pesa yako, uharibu wakati wako, kwa sababu tuko na kesi ambazo zimekuwa kotini karibu miaka 10. Wengine wanakufa, kesi bado ziko kotini. Kwa nini